Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my June TBR. So June is the month of Whatever You Want-a-thon round 2. So last June, Maddie over at Book Browsing Blog started a fantastic and such a successful new readathon that was literally called Whatever You Want-a-thon. You could do whatever you wanted. There were guidelines and certain prompts that you could attempt to fulfill, but there was by no means any necessary prompts that you had to fulfill. You just had to read whatever you wanted, and it was my most successful reading month to date. I read 17 books last June because of Whatever You Want-a-thon, Whateverathon. And I'm so excited to do it again. Round 2 starts in June and I am so excited. I'm going to be sticking to just doing Whateverathon this month, mostly because it's my favorite readathon and I want to dedicate a lot of time to it. But then also from the 5th to the 11th of June is going to be another round of Queer Lit readathon, which works really well with Whateverathon. So I'm going to be participating in those two readathons this month. For Whateverathon, I am on Team Sunset Scholars, which is the team that is hosted by Maddie and Jade, and I am so excited. It is going to be so much fun, and all of the prompts on this board are just perfect for me, and I had no trouble picking out a TBR, so it's going to be really fun. And then I also want to mention that all of the books that I'm reading in month are going to be queer. That is no ifs, ands, or buts. I am dedicating this month to entirely queer reads. You guys know that I read queer reads all year round, but being bisexual myself and it being Pride Month, I am so excited to read nothing but queer books for the entire month. It's going to be so much fun. I'll have all the links to Maddie's channel, the announcements, and the Twitter pages of both readathons linked down below, so you guys can go and start and make your own TBRs. But without further ado, let's just get into my June TBR. The first book, I'm so excited. I read the second book in the series last year during this readathon, which is insane to me. I can't believe I waited that long to read this. But I am going to be finally reading Girls of Fate and Fury by Natasha Nyan. This is the third and final book in the Girls of Paper and Fire series, one of my all-time favorite young adult fantasy series ever. I can't really give you guys a synopsis of this one because it is the third book in a trilogy and it's very spoilery, but the first book is Girls of Paper and Fire, and it follows our main character, Lei, who is chosen as a paper girl. She lives in this world, this fantasy world in which the entire population is divided into castes based on how much magic you have or how much demon you are. The lowest caste is the paper caste, and that is completely human, no magic. The second caste up is steel caste, and that is half demon, half human. And then finally the moon caste is the highest, pure demon. These demons have very animalistic qualities. They're basically anthropomorphic animals pretty much, or have very animal parts, heads, tails, all that kind of stuff. The highest caste is the ruling caste, run by the Demon King, and every year 8 paper girls are taken to the palace and chosen to serve the king. But this year 9 are chosen because Lei has these golden eyes that have made their way. Rumor has made its way to the palace, and the Demon King wants her as well. There's a really big trigger warning for sexual assault and sexual violence, so keep that in mind. There's trigger warnings in the book, but keep that in mind before you start the series. But this is one of my favorite series ever. The main characters are fantastic. It's queer. It is so empowering, and it makes me feel so many things, and I'm so excited but really sad that this series is coming to an end. I'm so excited to read the conclusion. It's going to be great. For Girls of Paper and Fire, it is going to count for the prompt The Anne of a And, basically a book that follows the typical YA fantasy structure. This one, Girls of Paper and Fire, fits that structure. It's in my favorite genre, which is fantasy, and I'm continuing a series with this one. Finishing a series, technically. So this is my first book, and I'm so excited. Okay, next up is actually, I have to choose between 2 books. So one of the prompts is to do a poll. So that is usually on Twitter or some other type of social media, where you give your followers a choice between 2 books or a certain number of books, and people have to choose which one you read. So I found 2 books that fit the same amount of prompts, so that I can continue and not have to worry about which book is chosen. And I'm very excited about it. So I am going to be having my Twitter followers choose between Ace of Shades by Farida Beke and Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. These books are both dark academia kind of thrillery novels. This one's more horror, this one's more mystery. And I'm super excited about both of them. They both are also fulfilling the prompts of being on a previous TBR, because I've had both of these books on previous TBRs. I'm going to be using it to fulfill the poll prompt, and they both have an academia theme. So Ace of Spades is a mystery thriller following these main characters. It's described as Get Out meets Gossip Girl. So this follows our two main characters that are featured on the cover here. They both become senior prefects in this year at this prestigious boarding school that they go to, which they're super excited about because it's going to look great on resumes and it's going to be great for their academic career. Except shortly after they become prefects, this anonymous figure that names themselves the Aces starts spreading these horrible secrets about them, which starts as just being annoying, but then it ends up turning into like a deadly game. And so I'm super excited about this. I love the blurb. I love the idea, and I've heard nothing but fantastic things about it. So if this one gets picked, I am going to be pumped. So both of these main characters are also queer. One of them is bisexual and one of them is gay, and I am just so excited to read this. It's going to be a really great time. Plain Bad Heroines, if this one gets chosen, I'm going to be very excited. I started reading this last year, and I got like just under 50 pages into it before I had to move on because the month had ended, and I'm a freak if I finish a book. If I don't finish a book before a month ends, I tend to stop and then wait a really long time before picking it up again. And again, I didn't get very too far into this one, but this one is kind of like a horror historical fiction kind of novel. So it follows our main character, Merritt Emmons, who is a writer and publishes a breakout book celebrating the queer feminist history surrounding the haunted and cursed Gilded Age institution, which she has just become a student of. And the story kind of mixes its way between the past in 1902 when two young girls get killed at this school and are just like rumored that they haunt the school. It says here, the award-winning author of The Miseducation of Cameron Post makes her adult debut with this highly imaginative and original horror comedy centered around a cursed New England boarding school for girls, a wickedly whimsical celebration of the art of storytelling, sapphic love, and the rebellious female spirit. That's all I know about it. I literally know nothing else. But I am so excited to get into this. I really liked what I was reading the first time around. I just got the introduction to the first original two characters that died in the 1900s. But I'm very excited to get to this incredibly soon. It's going to be fun. One of the other prompts for this readathon on all of the boards is called Last Letter, First Letter. And it's a prompt that happened last year as well. And Maddie has incorporated it into a lot of her TBRs. Basically, the point is to read a book that starts with the same letter the last book ended on. So after I read either of these, because both of them end with the letter S, I'm going to be reading The Story of Silence. I'm not counting the in this because that's just cruel. This is a really interesting book by Alex Myers that is a retelling of a very, very famous anonymous story, medieval romance from the 1300s called The Story of Silence. I read Silence in my medieval romances class during my master's, and I was fascinated with the story. It basically is one of the very first representations of a non-binary individual. But like in a medieval context, you can't really call them non-binary just because there's so much social aspect to that term that just didn't exist back then. But it was a really interesting take on a medieval romance in which the main character is born a girl but is raised as a boy in order to claim an inheritance that wouldn't have come to her regardless. But Silence is raised as a boy and goes by he, him for most of the story. But then later on it gets very fluid. So it's kind of a trans story. It's a non-binary story. It's a very interesting take on gender from the medieval period. And it's not like demonized. It's a very, very interesting take, and I really enjoyed the original story. This is a retelling that I never expected to find in my entire life. I found this at a used bookstore in Stratford, Ontario, and I literally, I saw this spine, The Story of Silence, and I was like, excuse me, and I grabbed it, never having heard of it before. The blurb on the front says, the tale of a non-binary knight finding the courage to be who they are, so it's very obviously leaning into the non-binary aspect of the story. One of the biggest aspects of the original story is that Silence themselves are actually the perfect embodiment of a medieval knight, and has all of the courtliness and chivalry and fighting ability, warrior ability, that they are praised as the best knight in the entire realm. So it kind of calls into question the idea of masculinity in medieval romance and the idea of chivalry and a chivalric knight being a masculine thing. It's just, there's so many layers to it and so interesting. So I'm super excited to read a like retelling, a modern retelling. Fascinated by this, very fascinated. It's going to be a really interesting ride. Like I said, this is going to fulfill the last letter, first letter prompt, as well as featuring pink on the cover. One of the prompts is to roll for a color. I rolled for the color pink. One of the other prompts is a book with S's on the cover, multiple S's, and this one does. So I'm very excited for this. It's going to be a very interesting time. Next up, I'm going to be reading The Flames of Albion by Jean Menzies. This is written by our mythology booktube queen, Jean, over at Jean's Bookish Thoughts. I'm very excited to read this. I've had this on a previous TBR and didn't end up getting to it, but this is the month it's going to happen. This is a super interesting fantasy story following our main character, Adaria. She is bisexual, she is socialist, she lives in this entire monarchy-free world, and she ends up going to this magic school, and she ends up finding a dragon egg, the last dragon egg in this world. It says at the bottom that Flames of Albion is a story of friendship, love, and acceptance that celebrates queer identity. I'm pumped. It's going to fulfill the prompt of a book with dragons, which is one of the Sunset Scholars specific ones. It also has pink on the cover, and it is a 2021 release. I am so excited about this. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. Next up is going to be my graphic novel pick for the month as well. I am going to be reading Volume 2 of Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. Everybody and their mother has been super interested in Heartstopper ever since the Netflix show came out. I have been a super big fan of the books for a long time, and I'm very excited to read the sequel to the first volume. I've read it on Webtoon, but I'm going to be reading it on physical for the first time, and I'm super excited. It is one of the best like queer graphic novel series and young adult queer series ever. It's got so many queer characters, including the two main characters, obviously. Charlie himself is gay and Nick is bi. Just incredibly wholesome. It's like one of those stories that definitely celebrates queer joy. And the TV series is just so, it makes me so emotional. It's so incredible and I'm really happy about it. But anyway, the prompts that this is going to fulfill are, this is a one-word title, and then it also is a host favorite. So there are many hosts for Whateverathon this year. Gavin is one of the hosts, and he has selected Heartstopper as one of his favorites. So this is part of the series. It's not the first book, but it's the second one, and I'm very excited to get to it. Next up is one of my most anticipated books of the year, and that is I Kissed Sara Wheeler by Casey McQuestion. This is a queer YA story that's kind of got a bit of a mystery element to it. This follows our main character, Chloe Green. Says she spent the last 4 years since her mom moved her from Southern California to Alabama for high school, dodging gossipy classmates and the puritanical administration at Willowgrave Christian Academy. The goal that's kept her going, winning valedictorian. Her only rival, prom queen Sara Wheeler, the principal's perfect progeny. But a month before graduation, Sara kisses Chloe and vanishes. So Chloe ends up on this hunt for answers and to try and find Sara. It is adorable, queer, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. This is Casey McQuestion's first foray into young adult. They normally write adult romances. Casey McQuestion is also non-binary, goes by they, them pronouns, and the main characters obviously are sapphic, and I'm so excited about it. It also has pink on the cover. It's the month of pink, apparently. And then I am counting this as being a book that I recently hauled because I picked it up last month, and it is at least less read genre because I don't typically read YA contemporary unless it's queer, pretty much. So this is going to be a really good time. I already know it. The rest of the books on this list only are going to fulfill one prompt each, and the first one of that is going to be A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. This is another kind of dark academia story following our main character, Felicity Morrow. This follows our main character, Felicity, as she goes back to this Dalloway school. It says, perched in the Catskill Mountains, this centuries-old ivy-covered campus was home until the tragic death of her girlfriend. Now, after a year away, she's returned to finish high school. She even has her own room in Godwin House, the exclusive dormitory, rumored to be haunted by the spirits of 5 Dalloway students. Girls some say were witches. The Dalloway 5 all died mysteriously one after another right on Godwin grounds. It says, witchcraft is woven into Dalloway's past. The school doesn't talk about it, but the students do. In secret rooms and shadowy corners, girls convene, and before her girlfriend died, Felicity was drawn to the dark. She's determined to leave that behind now, but it's hard when Dalloway's occult history is everywhere, and when the new girl won't let her forget. It's Ellis Haley's first year at Dalloway, and she's already amassed a loyal following. A prodigy novelist at 17, Ellis is a so-called method writer. She's eccentric and brilliant, and Felicity can't shake the pull she feels to her. So when Ellis asks Felicity to help her research the Dalloway Five for her second book, Felicity can't say no. Given her history with the arcane, Felicity is a perfect resource, and when history begins to repeat itself, Felicity will have to face the darkness in Dalloway and in herself. I'm super excited about this. I've heard really great things about it from a few of my friends, and it just sounds like a fantastic YA kind of horror and paranormal. It's got witchcraft, obviously. It's got sapphic characters. It's got, for the readathon, it's going to count as a book about books because the love interest, Alice, is a writer, and they're doing research for a book, so it works. I'm super excited. Next up is a book that's been on my TBR for way too long, and that is Crier's War by Nina Varela. This is a kind of fantasy sci-fi young adult novel, which deals with automatons. Yeah, it says impossible love between two girls, one human, one maid, a love that could birth a revolution. After the War of Kinds ravaged the kingdom of Rabu, the Autome, designed for to be the playthings of royals, took over the estates of their owners and bent the human race to their will. Now Ayla, a human servant rising in the ranks of the House of the Sovereign, dreams of avenging the death of her family by killing the Sovereign's daughter, Lady Crier. Crier, who is made to be beautiful, to be flawless, and to take over the work of her father. Crier had been preparing to do just that, to inherit her father's rule over the land, but that was before she was betrothed to Scryer Keenock, who seems to have 1,000 secrets. That was before she discovered her father isn't as benevolent as she thought. That was before she met Ayla. Set in a richly imagined fantasy world, Nina Varela's debut novel is a sweepingly romantic tale of love, loss, revenge that grapples with what it really means to be human. This one sounds fascinating. I don't know why I haven't read it yet. I know my friend Soleil really loves it, so I'm very much excited to read it. Again, YA fantasy sapphic is everything I need. I'm excited about the technological element of the automata. I'm excited to see how they're going to go, or how they're going to work through this. But this is going to count for the prompt to read a book with a shiny cover. This one's incredibly shiny. So the next book I'm going to be reading is our book club pick for the month with my in-person book club. This one I don't know very much about, but I just know that it's queer. And that is Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. I'm just going to read part of the back because, again, I don't really know what it's about. It says it's an extraordinary new novel about the influence of history on a contemporary family. Two families from different social classes are joined together by an unexpected pregnancy in the child it produces, moving forward and backward in time with the power of poetry and emotional richness of a narrative 10 times its length. Jacqueline Woodson's extraordinary new novel uncovers the role that history and community have played in the experiences, decisions, and relationships of these families and in the life of this child. It seems to follow our main character, Melody, who is the child in question, and it goes back and forth to talk about her birth and her conception and the family that she has been connecting all these years. And I'm very excited about it. It seems super interesting. It's unexpectedly queer. I didn't realize it was going to be queer before when we set the list. And I think it's going to be really interesting. It's going to count for a couple prompts, or just one prompt for this, and that is the prompt to read a book that's under 300 pages, because this book is only 195 pages. So it's going to be a very quick read, but I'm very interested to get to this month. The last physical book that I have is going to be my nonfiction pick for the month, which I'm so excited about, and that is Ace by Angela Chen, What Asexuality Reveals About Desire, Society, and the Meaning of Sex. So this one I just picked up recently because I saw it recommended by Hannah over at A Clockwork Reader, and it's gotten such incredible reviews. Let me just again read you the back because it's nonfiction, so I'm not going to describe it very well. But it also is selected for the 2021 Over the Rainbow book list by the American Library Association, which as a library student and future librarian, that makes me happy. But basically it says, many people consider the existence of asexuality an interesting piece of trivia. It's a lesser known sexual orientation. Some people identify as asexual and they should be accepted. Next. After all, if you're not asexual, what more is there to learn? Plenty, because every place that sexuality touches society, asexuality does too. And the issues that asexuals struggle with, confusion around sexual activity, the intersection of sexuality and identity, navigating different needs and relationships, are the same ones that people of every orientation are likely to confront. The questions may be near universal, but the answers look different from the asexual or ace perspective. Through reportage, cultural criticism, and memoir, ACE investigates the A of LGBTQIA, offering valuable frameworks for understanding human connection and inviting everyone to rethink pleasure and intimacy. I'm very excited about this. I don't know very much about asexuality at all. Nobody seems to talk about it very often, so I'm very excited to learn some more this month about asexuality. It's going to be a really interesting read. I'm going to learn a lot for sure. It's also not very long. It's quite short. It's less than 200 pages, so I'm very excited about this, and I know it's going to be good. So next up are 2 audiobooks that I'm planning on listening to this month. The first one is going to be The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. This is a YA coming-of-age queer story that is written in verse. It's kind of a la Elizabeth Acevedo, that follows our main character. So this follows our main character, Michael, who is a mixed-race gay boy, and as he enters university, he begins to uncover the world of drag, and it really helps him connect with his identity as he kind of emerges into the drag world as his alter ego, the Black Flamingo. I'm so excited. I've heard about this for a year. I think it came out last 2019, and I've been hearing about it for a long time. Some really great reviews. I'm really excited to listen to the audiobook because it is written in verse, so I think that's going to be the best way for me to consume this media. And it's one I've been wanting to read for a very long time, so I'm very excited about it. This is going to count for my last Whateverathon prompt, and that is to read a book in a different format. And I'm super excited. It's going to be a really good time. It is also going to count as my monthly audiobook and my monthly short fiction or poetry prompt. I have my own prompts that I like to read. Next up, I'm going to be reading Hide by Kiersten White. This is a brand new release. It's on its way to me. I don't have it in person quite yet. But this is a horror that is taking place in an amusement park where basically, so it says it's a high-stakes hide-and-seek competition turns deadly in this dark supernatural thriller. The challenge, spend a week hiding in an abandoned amusement park and don't get caught. The prize, enough money to change everything. Even though everyone is desperate to win, to seize their dream futures or escape their haunting pasts, Mac feels that she can beat her competitors. All she has to do is hide, and she's an expert at that. It's the reason she's alive and her family isn't. But as the people around her begin disappearing one by one, Mac realizes this competition is more sinister than she even imagined, and that together might be the only way to survive. 14 competitors, 7 days, everywhere to hide, but nowhere to run. I'm really excited about this. I heard about this through Kayla, and this is actually the June pick for the Literally Dead book club, hosted by Kayla over at Books and Lala. And I'm really excited about it. I've read And I Darken by Kiersten White, which is her kind of historical fantasy series, young adult. So I'm really excited to get into some of her adult work. I believe this is her adult debut. But it sounds uber creepy and supernatural and horror and thrillery, and I'm really excited to read it this month. It's going to be really interesting. Finally, the last book that I'm going to be reading during the month of June is another audiobook, and that is I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. So this is a young adult contemporary novel again that is again queer and following our main character Ben, who is non-binary. The description says, it's just 3 words, I am non-binary, but that's all it takes to change everything. When Ben DeBacker comes out to their parents as non-binary, they're thrown out of their house and forced to move in with their estranged older sister Hannah and her husband Thomas, whom Ben has never even met. Struggling with an anxiety disorder compounded by their parents' rejection, they come out only to Hannah, Thomas, and their therapist and try to keep a down low on at the new school. Trying to keep a low profile in a new school. I don't know what's wrong with me. But Ben's attempts to survive the last half of senior year unnoticed are thwarted when Nathan Allen, a funny and charismatic student, decides to take Ben under his wing. As Ben and Nathan's friendship grows, their feelings for each other begin to change, and what started as a disastrous turn of events looks like it might just be a chance to start a happier new life. At turns heartbreaking and joyous, I Wish You All the Best is both a celebration of life, friendship, and love, and a shining example in the of hope in the face of adversity. This one sounds like it's going to break my heart. But I'm very excited to read it. I've heard such good things about it ever since it came out, again, I think in 2019. Yep. I haven't read very many books that follow a non-binary main character, so I'm really excited to read this, and I think it's going to be a really great and really informative read while also being really emotional and heartbreaking. But hopefully it'll have a lot of hope by the end of it, which is my favorite kind of YA contemporary. It's the only YA contemporary I read, so I'm super excited about this. It's going to be a really good time. I'm going to be reading this as my buzzword pick for the month because the buzzword challenge, also hosted by Kayla at Books and Lala, the June prompt is to read a book with all or alls in the title. I'm very excited. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know down in the comments below what books you're going to be reading during the month of June, if you're participating in whatever you want-a-thon, what team you're on. And like this video, please, if you did enjoy it, because it really does help support my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I put out new bookish and writing videos every week, and I hope you guys have a lovely day. Bye-bye.